Hey Cheyennese debaters, this is another video for you guys to hopefully see how to do some things, emulate those things, and become better. So tonight what I'm going to work with you guys on and talk about in this video is how to flow. We've all had to learn it, some of us are still learning it, so I want to give you a little bit of a demonstration about what a flow should look like. So, got a piece of paper here, hopefully everybody can see it in front of the camera. You'll notice it is just like you would put it into a printer. We don't want it like this. We want the 11, the long side of the paper, standing up, and we want the shorter side at the bottom and the top. Now, to begin with the flow, every argument gets its own sheet of paper. So what do we mean by argument? Well, we've all talked about that there's inherency, there's solvency, there's advantages on an affirmative case. Each one of those gets its own sheet of paper. So you would have an inherency piece of paper, a solvency piece of paper, and a piece of paper for every advantage. All of the negative arguments, the new negative arguments, topicality, disadvantages, counterplans, critiques, each of those would get its own sheet of paper. So for example, if the negative stood up and read 3 disadvantages, you would need 3 sheets of paper. So with that in mind, let's talk about what we're putting on the flow. Well, the very first thing that needs to go on the flow, and hopefully I'll be able to get this into focus for you guys, the name of the argument. Right up here in the top left-hand corner of your piece of paper, put the name of the argument. And you can use shorthand. So if someone reads a China disadvantage, you can write up here China disadvantage, and I use DA for short, and we'll talk a little bit about the shorthand things that you can use. So, now we've got the name of our argument. People are going to be reading pieces of evidence. So where do we put those? Well, as you can see, we've got a space form. You start on the far left-hand side of your paper. Here, I have written tagline. So everybody knows that when we read a piece of evidence, someone will start off by saying a sentence, and that sentence will describe the piece of evidence. So on an affirmative, it may be, currently, we are not doing the plan, or something to that effect, probably more specific. That tagline, that sentence, you would write down in some fashion right here. You would also try and get the author, and I know it's probably a little blurry based on the camera angle, but that's okay. Trust me, it says author. You would want the date, if you can get it. And then you want to listen to the piece of evidence. And if something jumps out at you and you want to put it down on the paper, go ahead and put it in. Now, one little trick I like to use when I flow is if someone has read a piece of evidence, I like to put some kind of a symbol down that tells me when I'm looking back at my flow there was a piece of evidence read there. What I use for that is an X with a circle. Everybody can see that. You can develop your own system, your own symbol, whatever you want, but it's a nice way to let you know when you're looking back in a debate round, oh, there was a piece of evidence read there. Maybe that cues you in. Oh, I read that piece of evidence. I want to use it in a later speech. Now, most teams, when they're reading an argument, a disadvantage, for example, are not just going to stop with one piece of evidence. So you're going to need to flow another tagline, another author, and another date. You're going to repeat the exact same process that we started up above. But what's important, and what is a usual mistake for people starting out flowing, is you bunch these together. You don't leave much space. It's important, it's very, very important that you leave space. And as you go down and you flow more pieces of evidence, you want to leave more space. Same principle. They're still reading pieces of evidence, more space. Why do you want space? Well, let's tell you why. So we have the 1 in C, or the 1AC, the very first speech from each side. goes on this left-hand side. Then, it's a debate. So what's going to happen? The other team is going to get up and say something in response. Or at least that's what we hope happens. So, we've got to flow that as well. Where do we put it? Well, as it would so happen, there is a bunch of white space moving across the paper. We're going to put it there. And we're going to put it just like we did here. So, we've labeled this our China disadvantage. So, the second affirmative constructive is going to stand up and read answers. Usually, a 2AC will have numbered answers. 1, 2, 3, 4, however many numbers they want to go to. So how do we flow those? Well, we come over here, and I would write number 1 when I hear the first argument. And however you want to write it, I usually just 1 with a circle. Then, I'm going, after that number 1, I'm going to repeat the process I did here. I'm going to write a tagline, an author, and a date. Just like we did before. Then, if there's a second argument, what am I going to do? I'm going to have space. I want space. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say that's number 2. And then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to write the tagline of the piece of evidence, the author, and the date. Now, we're going to have some more space. We also know that sometimes when we're answering arguments or another team is answering arguments, they may not read evidence to make their argument. They may use an analytical argument. Well, we got to flow that too. So how would we flow that? We flow it the same way. I would write down whatever number their argument is, which in this case is 3, and then I would flow it. If they made some kind of an argument that says this disadvantage doesn't link to our plan, I might write something like no link and then whatever their argument is. Now you'll notice I said I wrote no link, but the word link does not appear. I've used an L with a circle around it. Why is that? Well, it saves me time. It saves me writing space. So again, at the end of this, after we go through what a flow will look like, we're going to talk about some shorthand. So, I'm going to repeat this process. If the 2AC is still answering this argument, I'm going to give myself space. 4, 5. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're looking at this and you're going, we have run out of room. This system is a failure. It's never going to work. Well, guess what paper has? 2 sides. So, if you get to the bottom and you need more space, there's more arguments, flip your piece of paper over. Now you'll notice there's some writing. Don't worry about that. You'll just keep going in that same column on down until this argument is done. So, there we have it. We have a first speech. We have a second speech. Here is where the space that we've left ourselves, this stuff right here, becomes very, very important. So, hopefully, if we were debating them, we would look at this and go, you know what, they've made this argument. We need to put 1 or 2 more arguments on it, just for this first argument. So how do I flow that? Well, everybody can do this a little bit of a different way. I like to come up and draw a line here. Lets me know different speech, and it lets me know the stuff on the other side of this line responds to this particular argument, whether it's a piece of evidence or whether it's an analytical argument. So, what am I doing here? Well, I'm going to do everything that I've already done. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say, okay, what was their first argument? And I'm going to write it out there. Hopefully everybody can see that. Then, I'm going to write out their second argument and write that there. Maybe there's a third argument. I write that there. But guess what? I have enough space to do this thanks to leaving space right here. If I didn't, and there were 3 or 4 arguments, well then I may run down here and get confused and think, wait a minute, was this third argument applying to this, or was it applying to this argument? Space ensures that you can stay organized. So, same thing. I come down here. Now they're answering this argument. I'm going to write that argument down. 2. Same thing for all of these. It's a rinse, lather, repeat. What we did here, we then did here. And we're doing the same thing here. But we're staying organized by spacing our stuff out and by writing down pertinent information and using numbers. So, as the debate goes along, we can track what happens. Because we're not going to be able to make a whole lot of arguments if we can't track what happens. Now, as the debate goes on, guess what? Things are going to get a little more compressed. So you have to write small. So writing things like non-unique, everybody see that? That is going to take up way too much space. You've got to write small. And you have to develop a shorthand system. And as I promised, we're going to talk about that right now. So, we've got the basics of flowing. This is what a flow should look like. Now, hopefully you all have better handwriting than I do. But this is the basic outline. Tagline, author, date, some kind of a symbol. Space. The responding argument, same thing. Tagline, author, date, space. Tagline, author, date, space. Now, as it may happen, before I move on to the shorthand, one important thing that everybody needs to know. We may miss an argument. Someone may talk really fast, or we were thinking about something else, and we didn't catch this fourth argument that they made in their speech. So, what do? Do we just forget about it? Do we just not write anything down? No. Write something down. So let's say I missed this fourth argument. I didn't get a tagline, I didn't get an author, or if it was an analytical, I didn't get what they said. What do I need to do? I need to put some kind of a star, question mark, exclamation points, something to let me know there's an argument that should be there. Why is that important? Well, number one, there's this thing called cross-examination. So if we miss something, we know where we can ask about it. And if there's an argument made and we know we need to respond to it, we have a partner that may have flowed this argument and we can check with them. But it's important that you note it. So, let's talk about shorthand now. As I said, big writing, not good. So, what can we do? Well, there's a whole host of things that people have already developed that are really useful for flows. A lot of the arguments that you're going to hear people make in the same way. I've already mentioned one of them. No link. Sometimes people will say no link to a disad. L with a circle. No non-unique. This argument up here. What can we do for that? N/U. Non-unique. How about no impact? No exclamation mark with a circle. Now, speaking of impacts, oftentimes people talk about nuclear war. Debate blows everything up. So how could we note nuclear war? How about a nice little mushroom cloud? That tells me that nuclear war is happening. Something is causing nuclear war. What are some other things? How about solvency? We hear that a lot. S with a circle. You're noticing a theme here. Lots of circles. Inherency. I with a circle. Advantage. How about ADV period? Disadvantage. D/A. Those are a lot of the common arguments that we're going to hear. Counterplans. We hear those occasionally. How about CP? That seems like a good shorthand for counterplan. Critiques. Hopefully you don't hear too many of those. Those are never fun. K with a circle. More circles. All right. What about some other words that we hear a lot? Leads to, causes. I like to use an arrow. Just draw a quick arrow. I know that means leads to. Or the equal sign. Part of an arrow. Something equals this. The plan equals a change. Whatever it may be. Because. B/C. So I could list quite a bit more, but all I want to do is convey the basic idea that there are a lot of ways where we can abbreviate in debate. These are going to take up less space. They're going to be faster and easier to write down. So you're not worrying, did I spell critique correctly? Or do I have to spell out nuclear war? Nope, I'm just going to draw a little mushroom cloud. It's important. You learn these, and guess what? You should experiment. You should develop your own system and then implement it over here on the flow. So let's say this first argument here is non-unique. We're answering this China disadvantage, and the first argument the 2AC has made is some kind of their uniqueness argument is incorrect. Well, instead of writing non-unique, we're just going to write N/U. Well, hopefully everyone has gotten something out of this video. As always, Sandy and I are available for any questions. You can email or call us. And please watch this video if you ever go, I forgot how to do that. Or, I need some shorthand symbols. They will be right here on the internets.